Good morning, everyone. This is Avraham Shira from Nahar, Shalom, and Chabura. Is Simcha on the line? Yeah. We are getting ourselves together here after Purim, and we're beginning with some very interesting things. The Gemara on page Daf Nun Zayin Amud Bet is going to talk about a continuing subject we had before, about food that's good or food that's not good for a sick person. Yesterday we learned that certain foods are good for sick people, like cabbage, spinach, and little fish, oily fish, things like that are very good for a person, for their health and their mind. Today we have Asara Devarim, the Rav says, it's in the middle of the daf. Asara Devarim machzirim et hacholei lecholio. This is a difficult thing. 10 things that actually cause a sick person who's gotten better to become sick again. So this is something that's worth it to know, right? Because everybody gets sick once in a while, and then we get better, and the last thing we want to do is get sick again. So the rabbis understand, and the Rambam writes about this, that the time that most people get sick is when they're coming out of a previous sickness. Their bodies are vulnerable and weak, and it creates a dangerous situation for eating these 10 types of foods. When a person's sick, there's things he should eat, but when he's getting better, he still has to be careful. You have to treat yourself very gently. So the Gemara goes on to these 10 things. What are they? Ve'elohein basar shor, basar shamen, basar tzali, ובשר ציפורים, ביצה צלויה, ותגלחת. Okay, what are these things? The meat of an ox, eating heavy meat is not so good when a person is just getting better. It's heavy, it requires a lot of energy for the body to process that food, to burn it up. Remember, we have to remember your stomach is like a little oven. It burns, it literally cooks the food until it's digestible and usable by the body and its organs. So, but the ox meat and fatty meats and roasted meats and even the meat of birds, etc., ubeitza tzluya, and even a boiled egg, v'tiglachat, of all things, even getting a haircut when a person is just getting better can be difficult to a person. You got to say, what? What do you mean? A haircut, John? Is difficult for a sick person? Can become sick again? Well, I thought about this question for a little bit, and I've noticed that when I get a haircut, my head feels cold. Now, my head feels cold anyways. I don't have a lot of fur up there, but I did. And the truth is that the back of the neck is the place where the cold goes into a person most directly, most easily, the back of the neck. And so if you get your hair cut there, maybe you're making yourself more exposed and more vulnerable. Or the haircut itself is removing the din that we've talked about this in spiritual terms, that the haircut is something to remove negative forces. But here a person becomes vulnerable. John, what do you think?
So you lose heat through the extremities.
You lose heat through the extremities anyways, that's correct.
So less hair, less insulation.
Right. Most 90% of the body heat goes up through the head like a candle. And we can understand why people are so makpid to wear hats. For centuries and millennium, covering the head was a normal thing. We grew up in the States, so wearing a hat was like, once in a while, on Halloween or something. We see that wearing a hat is a very practical thing to keep a person's heat in their body and protect them from illness. Okay, with all that said, the list goes on. Boiled vegetables, and drinks milk. vagvina, and eating cheese. All these things require more power for the body to digest, and therefore a person who's sick should not be eating things that demand something extra from the body. We should be eating the simplest things. That's why chicken soup is so good, because it's soup. It's already digested. So, but these other items can be difficult, and cheese, we know, milk, and even the Rav writes, amerchatz, even going to the bathhouse can be very dangerous. Now, that's pretty clear that if you go to a back in the day, they didn't have hot water in their homes to take baths generally, unless they heated the water themselves. But most people just had a membership at the bathhouse, and they went once a week, and they dipped. But, when you come out of that hot bath, that's the easiest chance for the illness to strike a person, because when you're hot and you're in a hot bathhouse, etc., and you come out into the cold, the extremity of temperature taxes the body and makes a person vulnerable to illness again. Okay. And there's another opinion that says af egozim, even walnuts. Why would walnuts be difficult for a sick person who's getting better? I'm not sure, but maybe egozim also are difficult. And then others say she'af kishuim, that also eating zucchini, kishuim, types of squash are also difficult for a person when they're getting better. Oh, is that possible? Kishuim, simple vegetables? What's going on? Tana de Rabbi Ishmael, they taught in the house of learning of Rabbi Ishmael. Lamanik Rasha Shimon kishuim. Why are these vegetables called kishuim? I know all of us that we've been learning together for a little bit now. We've gained a certain understanding that the letters of the names of things are where the rabbis are operating, where they're discovering teachings from the very letters of the names of things. So that's what they're asking here. Why is kishuim called kishuim? He said, kishuim ipnei shehen kashim leguf kecharavot, because they are difficult for the body like swords. So that would imply that the digestion of kishuim, of these types of vegetables, would be very difficult for the body to absorb, and it's like swords, like pain in your stomach, which is not pleasant. So the Gemara asks, eating? Why? Are you kidding? Everybody eats kishuim, zucchinis and stuff. But it's written elsewhere, V'yomer Hashem la shnei goyim b'bitnech. Now the rabbis go completely off the daf and bring a pasuk that deals with God speaking to Rivka Imenu and telling her that she's going to have two nations are being born in her stomach. Right? Of course, Yaakov and Esav. But what does that have to do with eating, kishuim? Rather, atikra, the rabbis say, goyim, don't say two nations in your stomach, elagayim, two proud people. Two proud people. In other words, Yaakov, Avinu, and Esav were not just simple people. They were, they were the big folks in their generation. So, what are we getting at here? These two great people, Nitkaim Papasuk and Toninus Rabbi, they parallel the chavruta that took place between Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Antoninus, who was one of the leaders of the Greek Empire at the time. They used to learn together secretly underground in Jerusalem. We were told that there was a special tunnel that they used. And these two, this righteous non-Jewish leader who was learning with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, was one of the greatest of the great. Their relationship parallels this relationship between Yaakov and Esav. Of course, Antoninus is like king of Esav for his generation. And Yaakov Avinu, of course, is the king of the Jewish people, and Rebbe is like king of his generation. So what are we learning from this? And what does it have to do with Kishuim? Well, we're going to find out very shortly. From the abundance of their wealth, Rabbi Yehuda and Nasi's wealth and Antoninus' wealth, lo pasak mishulchanam lo tzanon velo chazeret velo kishuim lo biyamot hachama velo biyamot hageshamim. Right, that they were so wealthy that they could bring in food from all over the world all year long, in the summer and in the winter. And in the winter, it's a little hard to find, vegetables growing. It's not their best time, and yet they were always found on the table of these two king-like people. I see Chaim Malach is listening. David Chaim Malach. Well, Malach as an angel could also be Melech. So these two king-like people, they always had these vegetables on their table, and if they had the vegetable on their table, it must be a good thing, right? Otherwise they wouldn't have it. Because they know these, one thing we always have to remember, the rabbis know the Gemara that they wrote, right? They know the teachings, right? And so they parallel these two other great leaders, and therefore we say, Lo kasha ha kashim leguf rovave vaha sheninu shelo pasku mishulchanam harik vizutrei. In other words, when the rabbis talk about that the Rebbe always had lettuce and other vegetables on his table, even in the winter time, those were little ones and they were healthy for the body. But where we say that kishuim are hard, difficult for the body like swords, that's what we're talking about, large ones. So there are many varieties of these vegetables. And radishes are included, and turnips are included. So it's telling us there's something interesting, and I am not, you'd have to ask a horticulturalist, perhaps, what is the difference of eating a large piece of lettuce or a large is there really that much difference between this type of lettuce and that type of lettuce? Well, apparently there is. And you could see that the smaller vegetables are easier for the body to digest, and the large ones are more difficult. Okay. So again, the rabbis give us some of their wisdom about how to eat and what to eat and when to eat what and when to eat not what. And when a person's sick is a vulnerable time, you have to be very careful. Not to just assume I can go back to, my Shabbos Cho in 5 days a week. What's that, John?
When you say it's difficult to digest, it's not to do with the size, because you can chop it up to whatever size you want. I presume it's the texture of the thing.
No,
substance.
it's right. That's the texture of the vegetable and not the size of the pieces. Right. Okay. Good point. Now we're going to go back to dreams, and this morning's dreams are important. I know. Reb Gedalia, you're out there, and this might be important to you. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis say, if a person has a dream and he sees a dead person in his dream, in his house, which is a bit strange, it's a sign of Shalom Bayit. So, seeing a dead person in your house in a dream is a good thing. It's a sign that you'll have peace in your house. Of course, most Shalom Bayit is the peace between a husband and wife. Sometimes it's other details. Now, if in a dream a person achava shata babayit, now if you see a dead person eating and drinking in your house, well, that's fun, right? There, someone that you know is dead is eating and drinking in your house in a dream. What is that teaching us? Siman yafeh labayit. It's a good sign for the house. Now, usually Siman Yafeh Labayit would mean to everybody in the house, but it could also mean the house itself. Back in the day, remember, a house was not just a dwelling; it was oftentimes a center for a community, and a house was also used as a name for an economic entity, the house of Rothschild. the house of John Moses, right? Right? A house is a sign of an economic entity. So it's an important thing in a certain way. And if you see a person eating and drinking, a dead person eating and drinking in your house, don't get it. It's not the the haunted house at Disney. Right? It's a good thing. However, let's say in a dream you see a dead person, natal keli min habayit. Now it gets a little stranger. It gets a little stranger if you see a dead person in your dream who takes vessels or clothing from your house. Okay, siman ra labayit. That's a bad sign for the house. So what those vessels represent, obviously, is blessing. And if the dead person is taking those blessings out of the house, it's not a good sign for the house itself. Okay. And the Rav writes here on the side, interestingly, why is this a bad sign for the house? It's an allusion to ke'ilu, as if to say the met, the dead person, is taking with him something from the house. In other words, I'm taking from the house. It's not a good sign. All right? Now, I would not bless anybody to see dead people in a dream. It has happened to me. It has happened to other friends. It can be shocking. It can be scary. But we have to understand that they're just as alive as we are. We just have bodies. They don't have bodies. So we have to have this faith and this understanding also of the integrity of the soul lasts beyond the body. And so when you see a person that you love, that you're close to, that has been a big part of your life, it's not just a sign or a symbol. It could very well be a visitation from the upper world. Because why? Because they love you and they understand you're having a hard time. Whatever it might be, you may be having a hard time because the dead person died. That's the first thing, that people experience. But there's a lot of ways that people could suffer, and a dead soul is part of the chain of your soul back through the generations. So if you get visited in a dream by a dead person, it's really a linkage of your soul back to our ancestors, all the way back to the Shekhinah herself. So really, there's nothing to be afraid of. Now, if you have a dream and you see something scary, it's a question, should I try not to be afraid? And not everybody has that control of mindset to be able to adjust their feelings to what they see in a dream. There is this, again, we talked about it before, a lucid dream is where you know you're dreaming and you can impact it, you can change it. Whereas a lot of times people just dream and they don't know that they're dreaming until they wake up. Okay, but if you see a dead person, especially someone that you care about, it's not necessarily a bad thing. We just have to pay attention to what they're doing and what they're trying to communicate. Now, a lot of times they'll just come and look at you and make a face. They won't even talk. But in their face, there's an expression that contains a teaching. In their very expression, there is something we need to pick up. Whether they're comforting us because we're suffering, or they're encouraging us because we're having a weak moment. This is often times the real reason that the dead person might visit a person in a dream, because it can be very comforting to know that you're connected to and being observed, and your life is not an empty book that's going to be thrown away when you're done. That you're part of something much bigger. We're part of something much bigger than ourselves. And in heaven, they know what we're going through more than we do here. Right? Down here, we have many, many shields that protect us. They could be physical shields. The body itself is a physical shield from spiritual information. But so too are bad feelings, negative thoughts, deeds that we need to fix, places we need to do tshuva. All of them are shields. In psychology, we like to call them defense mechanisms. But what's the defense here? What am I defending against?
I've seen the Rebbe in the dream.
You saw the Rebbe of Lubavitch in a dream?
Not often.
Mordechai, what did you see?
What?
What did you receive in the communication?
Not much. I mean, I just saw one him with his wife once also.
The Rebbe came with his wife. Really?
Yeah. But it's very faint. I don't remember.
It's
all
fuzzy.
fuzzy.
Were you married at the time that you saw his wife?
Was I married? Yeah.
You were. Okay.
I mean, it's a long time ago. I mean, few and far between this happened.
Very interesting. Do you remember having any flash of insight or intuition?
No, but I always felt good when I woke up.
You felt good when you woke up.
The interesting thing is, it was a long time ago. You do remember it.
Oh yeah.
There's something there.
Well, that's one of the signs of true dreams, is that you remember them regardless of context and situation. They stick with us. So that's another sign. All right. But if you see the dead person making off with your clothes, it's not a good sign. Come back. I need that coat. Anyways. Targuma, now an explanation Rav Papa offers us, b'misana b'sandala, if you see the dead person in a dream taking your shoes or your sandals, it's a sign that a person is going to have to take a long journey. Now, what is a long journey and how is that interpreted is another question. But still, we can get the basic idea that it's time to call the travel agent if you see, the dead person taking your shoes or your sandals, because of course shoes and sandals are symbols of travel, of the ways that we get around this world. So that in itself is one thing to pay attention to. Mazel Tov, Rabbi Yisrael. Now, I've had dead people appear to me in a dream and smile, and that was good enough for me. It wasn't specific, it wasn't particularly long or traumatic or anything, but just a smile. But when it's where it's coming from, then it's a good thing.
I once saw my grandmother after she passed away.
Yeah.
When I was very young, I had my wisdom teeth extracted.
After your grandmother passed away, you had your wisdom teeth extracted.
They put me to sleep for that.
They put you to sleep, and you saw your grandmother in a dream.
I don't remember what. I just remember having seen her.
What did she do in the dream? She.
I was in ninth grade, 8th grade. I was a long time ago.
She didn't offer you a toothbrush and some toothpaste.
50 years ago.
All right, it's hard to remember everything. Yeah, thank God, though. Dreams are one of the actual ways that Hashem can show us mercy when we really need it. Yeah, John.
Can I interject with a very brief
Please.
story?
You want a brief story here? Yes.
Someone who I know said that his father and his father's friend were having a discussion about whether or not there was life after death.
Two people were having a discussion
And
about.
they said, well, if there is, whoever goes first communicates with the other.
Nachon.
One person passed away. About 14 years later or 20 years later, whatever, many years later, he got a communication. The person who was living got a communication from the one who passed away saying, tomorrow you will be okay. But don't worry, you will be okay.
Really, that's all.
And the next day...
How did the communication come? Through a dream?
Yeah, sorry, that's important. Yeah, it's in a dream. The next day, there was a terrible fire in the London Underground station.
Right.
And he was there. The person who was living was there on site, and he managed to get out just in time and avoid being hurt.
So there you go. Very nice. A friend came back after all those years. He came back to give him a prophetic dream that you're going to be okay tomorrow. Don't worry. So you see, that time again is very elastic in the spiritual realm. Very elastic, and we're not bound by time like we feel we are here. Okay. Now, Rav Papa told us about the shoes and the sandals as being a sign of being taken by a dead person, a sign a person has to travel. And anything that a dead person takes in a dream, ma'aleh, it's a good thing. Except bar misana besandala, except the sandal and the shoe. That these are not considered good things that you want the dead person to be taking in a dream. So maybe he's telling you that the journey is not going to be such a good one. But called the yahev shachacha, and anything that a dead person gives you in a dream is a good thing, bar misana besandala, except again for sandals and shoes. That he gives you other things, it's a good sign. Dafka, not these. But called the yahev shachacha. Right, we like that. But there are two things that you don't want to receive from a dead person in a dream. One is earth, because the sign earth is a symbol of being buried. So that's something we try to avoid usually. And mustard, of all things. Mustard. And it's also considered a symbol or connected to the idea of being buried, which would imply that a person's going to die from, if he sees a dead person, give him earth or mustard seed or mustard plants, which right now mustard is blossoming all over Eretz Israel. The whole country's yellow. It's beautiful. But you just don't want to get one in a dream. A lot of it is. Not all of it. Those little ones are mustard, the little yellow flowers. But there's many. But mustard is a very healthy thing, but apparently not in not in the language that we're speaking at the moment. Okay, how are we doing on time? We're going to go on today. By the way, we're going to learn a piece of the Arizal Kadosh about Pesach that explains a very large portion of the whole history of humanity and the repair of the human race, Tikkun Olam. It's a famous piece from the Arizal, and it is like an introduction to Pesach, but also to our understanding of this important, hugely important concept, the fixing of the world, Tikkun Olam. So we're going to learn that after we finish the Gemara, see how long it takes us. But it's something that we really have to absorb and look at, because it gives us a very panoscopic vision of the way the Mekubalim see the world. Okay, and of course they didn't make it up, right? They got it from somewhere. Now, the next piece of Gemara changes gears, and we are on to a piece of the earliest Mishnah we learned in this parak. Makom shene'akra mimenu avodah zarah. If you see in a dream, still in dreams. Well, the first part of it was if not in a dream, but awake. If you see a place where an idol or a statue of some kind of avodah zarah was uprooted, that could include certain other places where people worship human beings or worship angels or anything but the one God. And you see a place like that that's been uprooted and removed, we of course make the blessing, Baruch she'akar avodah zarah me'artzenu. Blessed is the one who uproots idol worship from our land. You ask, what's the big deal about idol worship? Come on, guys. Everybody has their level of belief and their level of faith and their level of fallen faith. And why are we so makpid and strict about removing idol worship from the land and making a blessing about it and destroying it and the signs of it? And what's going on? Because these types of things, they weaken our faith. Even if we know for 100%, 1,000% that this statue is not have any power of its own. It's just a block of wood or stone or metal. So why do I have to get so excited about getting rid of it? But rather because these symbols weaken our consciousness. Because our consciousness is actually a symbol processor. We are constantly processing things that are symbols to us. Right? When you see the train go by and you miss the train, the train becomes a symbol. A symbol that I missed my ride. Okay, what's the big deal? No, but missing a train becomes an event in your brain. Okay? And when you have a friend who goes and serves an idol, even though you're You're not going to serve the idol and you feel sad about your friend who's going to go off to the temple and bow down to whatever they bring. You feel sad about it. It weakens us. So Hashem is looking to strengthen us. So we should again remember the basic principle that Arivim Zelezeh, Jews are connected. When we do things, it does affect other people. Okay, but nonetheless, there is this blessing if we see such a place. Now the rabbis go on with Tana Rabbanan. The Tosefta is just a ro'eh avodah zara, Markulis, right? It sounds like the word Mercury, right? The Greek, the Roman god, which was stolen from the Greek god, who was called Markolis, right? You see that person, or that statue, Omer Baruch Shenatan Orech Apayim Le'ovdei Retzono, Ovrei Retzono. There is even a special blessing that goes like this: Blessed are those. Blessed is the one, who gives us patience, who gives his patience to those who go against his will. So we even bless God for extending his patience to people who are apparently not believing. So that's a good thing unto itself. Now, and so too, and just as Hashem uprooted in this place this idol worship, so he should uproot all other places in Israel. And he should return the heart of his servants to his service. In other words, the whole point is not that the person that serves idols, it doesn't mean they don't believe in the one God. We've talked about this before. It just means there's a confusion about the place of power. That maybe God has power and these other things have power too. The sun has power, the moon has power. We understand that from the angelic position, from the mystical Kabbalistic position that all physical bodies have some kind of spiritual entity or power connected to it. But it doesn't mean that they're independent from the one power. So when we talk about idol worship and this type of thing, we're not judging people the way that Hashem judges them. Because Hashem sees the whole person and the whole picture. And we have to strive to do the same and understand that even if a person falls and he wants to go down to the disco, he wants to go to the trance club, that there's a little something going on for him, he still has faith in Hashem. He has having a hard time, a hard moment, and we all need strength in these situations. Okay, now. Uvachutz, the Rav goes on to tell us, that we don't have to say in outside the land this part of the blessing that says, and he returns the heart of his servants to your service. Why? Why don't we say that about people that are in Chutz La'aretz? Because the most of the people that live outside of Israel are non-Jewish. So it doesn't all apply to them necessarily. But Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Afba Chutz La'aretz Tzarich Lomar. No, Rabbi Shimon doesn't agree. He says, no, we have to make the normal blessing that we just made before about bringing the heart of your servant back to your service. Because listen to this, is beautiful, folks. This is important. Remember this. Because all the nations in the future world will convert. Now, this is a heavy statement. A lot of people might not like this statement. It sounds rather religiocentric, right? Egocentric. You guys are all going to be like us. What do the Muslims say? Well, that we're going to make the world Muslim, and the Christians say, well, we're going to make the world Christian, and there's going to be a Christian Messiah, etc., etc., etc. All these projections are projections, right? Well, here we have another one, that all the nations are going to convert, but we trust these sources Well, we trust them because of a lot of reasons, but essentially because they're in the Gemara and we treat them as holy people that wouldn't say things that they didn't believe were true. They wouldn't say things just to persuade people religiously or politically, but they want to say the truth, and the truth is enough to make us the way we need to be. So in the future, it says that they will convert. Ki azafoch et ha'amim safa berura lekro b'shem Hashem la'avodo shechem echad. It's a famous pasuk from Sophania, which is right near the end of. It's one of the last prophets in the whole Tanakh, and he says, and then meaning the future world, afoch el ha'amim, I will turn over to the nations safa berura, a clear language that calls out in the name of God, to serve Him shechem echad, shoulder to shoulder, that we are going to all eventually recognize the one God and stop all this nonsense of, internecine violence, should we call it? But it's really internecine is brothers fighting each other, family fighting each other. But here, we're talking about the family of nations. We've been fighting and using religion to fight for too long. But there is going to be a change, God willing, in the future. So this is an interesting statement of the rabbis. It's coming out like a straight up prophecy about the future, that everybody's going to have a clear language. What does it mean to have safar berura, clear language? To call on God. Mordechai?
It's going to undo what happened at Bavel.
Fair. It's going to undo the confusion of the languages.
Well, and what they wanted to do in Bavel, they wanted to make war with God.
Right. Very nice. They want to make war with God. They built the Tower of Babel, and then God said, okay, I'll just split all your languages up and you'll get confused.
So now it's just my...
So your idea is that they're all going to come back with a clear language.
Yeah, it's going to undo the evil, the bad that was done there. Mankind will...
Nice. It's a repair of the original idea of making a war with Hashem by the Tower of Babel. God split the languages up, but then all the languages are going to come back to Safar Berura. But we see that there are hundreds and hundreds of languages spoken on this planet. They're all going to speak English. They're all going to speak Hebrew. I don't think that's what it means.
Maybe it means.
What do you mean, John?
There's no ambiguity in anything. No
ambiguity.
No clarity and certainty. There's no the Hindu pantheon with God at the top. There's one God and that's it. There's no.
There will be Heskem, that everybody will agree that there's one God.
That's it.
He's not
in partnership. No sub-gods. Powers are in angels, obviously angels and forces that He created and is in control of. But there's no.
Well,
we weren't Hindu pantheon. We won't be acknowledged.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know.
I hear you. Another idea is like this: that God will turn over to the nations a clear language. The idea is that they will receive the awareness of the oneness, and there will be clarity of speech about religion, about Hashem. That we're not going to fight anymore about who's the Messiah, and who's the Rebbe, and who's the Tzaddik, and who's the Rasha. We're not going to fight about those things. It's all going to be clear to us. So we're going to get a pure expression of reality that will not be confused. So that's something certainly to look forward to, all people on this planet, not just the Jews. Now the irony, of course, is that the very people that Hashem took away the clarity of language also lost the power of tikkun that was given to Abraham. That before Abraham, any person had the power of tikkun to enter into the yichud, to enter the unity with the oneness and cause repair in the world. Avraham Avinu became the leader and the teacher of that idea, and so God ruled that everybody is going to have to take his awareness of the oneness from the original person who taught that. In other words, I could say, I believe in one God. Well, what religion are you? I'm not a religion. I just believe there's one God. Really? Where did you get that idea? Well, I heard about it from all these other people. Well, where did they hear it from? Well, they heard it from other people. Well, where did it originate? Well, we know we had this guy, Abraham, who we know was a monotheist. He believed in one God. But it doesn't tell us that Abraham was the only person who believed. Rather, Abraham was the first person who taught it as a organized teaching to the rest of the world. Whereas other people believed, they all didn't share their knowledge and their belief system with others. Where Avraham really standardized the ideas of monotheism in order to teach them to others. So it's going to come back to that clarity of perception, and that was reflected in our clarity of speech. That began with the teaching of Abraham, and it's coming back today. Okay, with all of that said, I think we're going to stop here and move on to the Arizal HaKadosh and what he speaks, but I'm going to stop for just a moment, take a 2-second break. Everybody take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment.